Welcome to another Quantum Conversation. I'm Loren Gailey, and I invite you to sit back as we enter the quantum realm, that space of the greater part of you. It is your connection to infinite possibilities, infinite potential, and infinite mastery. We are very excited to be here today with Randy Veitenheimer. He is a modern day medicine man and one who is deeply connected to his Native American roots. And he has actually become quantum in his life and his reality. He's connected on many different levels. And we're so pleased to be here today with Randy. Hi, Randy. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Hello there, Lauren. Happy to have this discussion. We'll see if we both survive
it. I think we'll survive it. Surviving it means expanding our mind, expanding our hearts. Now, you are an incredible student of martial arts, and that led you into this work that you do with energy. So you've got a lot to talk about, our energy, who we are, and what keeps us from being real and present in this moment. And then we can also talk about how that makes us connected to all that is galactic and all of it. So today we're going to talk a little bit about interdimensional beings, interdimensionalness. So let's start there first. What is your definition of interdimensional and then interdimensional beings? Can you explain that for us?
Okay. Reality is not all it's cracked up to be. I'll put it that way. So, we take our reality as our senses, sensory input. And then we take the sensory input and we run it through a central processing unit we'll call the brain. And then that in turn is run by software. And the software, of course, is our education, our experiences, and our connection to whatever it means to be human. And I have my doubts about that too. Hello to everybody. I'm going to do a lecture, hopefully in March in Los Angeles. And I'm going to talk about some of this and either that or hold an outdoor barbecue. So that's a bad joke. I don't tell bad jokes. So interdimensionality, people want to talk about things that are out there. And really, it goes on inside you. So one of the things in the martial arts is that you study external martial arts. That's all the kung fu fighting and body movements. But after about 6 years, if you have a good teacher, they'll start teaching you internal arts. And internal arts is learning to comprehend, utilize, interact with your own energy and the energy of others. And if you expand it to people, places, and things. Native American culture has that same program, that there's a big internal world that interacts literally what we would call across dimensions. I use dimensions as a word because it defines basically intersections of information or energy flow. Quantum, we put that in, it's all over the place. It's basically a language. It's a language model that gives us a lot more room and ability to expand how we express what we do, and also the language of interaction. So Native Americans, we interact with plants. One of the first exercises I tell people is sit down with a plant and listen to it. I didn't say talk to it. Okay. So that ability allowed us to confirm whatever characteristics or benefits or detriments of that plant to our own well-being, we can apply that to people, places, and things too. And I think it's interesting. I grew up because my grandmother said, "Well, you learn to listen to plants, and they're actually quite chatty if you learn to talk to trees." Um, I like one of the movies, Lord of the Rings. They had Ents, E-N-T-S, and those were tree spirits that would talk to you. So now we're into the right language. Tree spirits, plant spirits, animal spirits. You're talking Native American language, okay? But not scientific language until the early 70s. There was a book came out called Secret Life of Plants. And I just happened to be studying with Marcel Vogel at the time in LA and Monterey, California. And Peter Tompkins, Marcel Vogel, and the guy that actually did the putting the electrodes on the plant, like the little machine you just showed me, right? Now there, they were just looking for an electrical response, and and if you expand that, you get into the frequency and actually the information content that's going along with that. So I like the idea of having a synthesizer, something mechanical, and it translated into music. And there, you can find information out there that talks about how plants sing or make noises or how groups of plants communicate. And so to me, the absurdity that humans are the only conscious beings uh, is not exactly true. Now, all the things we're talking about are physical except for the communication. So, what if you had a what we would call a disembodied spirit? I like that language. I don't know who the hell came up with it because it's ridiculous. From the standpoint that there's things out there that have consciousness that don't have dimensional physical being. How do we know that? Ever had a dream? So, right? Who or
Yes.
what are you interacting with? And and that kind of question, the last 4 or 5 months, I've been working really hard on. The basic question comes down is, what are you? It's the lecture I'm working on is called Being Human and Human Being. Those are different things. And as a human being, we define it generally physically. Nobody jumps out there and explains what it is in what I call 10 different areas, dimensions. Those are physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, psychic, psychological, etheric, astral, and causal, because those were things that came up in the process of working on thousands of people over the years. That if I had that as sort of a matrix, I could comprehend and delve into the information field of a person and find out what the heck's going on. So the reason I called it Being Human, Human Being is that I think we're only human being about, or being human about 10, 12 hours a day. And then we go, well, what's the rest of the time? You ever been asleep? you're, you're not exactly a human being when you're asleep. And your interactions are interdimensional or non-physical dimensional, whichever language you want to use. And boy, that raises some questions because most of the time you're daydreaming, most of the time you're sleeping. If you take all that up, what we call blank time, we don't know who you are, what you are, because there is communication still going on at a high rate of interaction during all those time periods. It's just that we're only physical or human when we're physical for the most part. And the rest of this becomes like some nebulous, quantum, some astral, some plasma type existence. And boy, does that get into a bunch of questions.
Yes, it does. It does. So let's go into that part of humanality, which is not physical. Plasma. And we've learned that like there's new plasma light coming to the planet. Are
Mhm.
you aware of that? Do you have thoughts on that? And what do we do with this plasma light? How does that help us as humans? Does it expand our consciousness? What does that do?
Okay. There's a basic problem. We call it particle physics or just general physics. And uh, the answer lies in the fact that there's a Planck scale. And Planck scale deals with how small particles are, let's say. And it goes from 1 to 36, and we can go down to Higgs bosons or whatever and get down to minus 35 or 35 or what. This is just a scale of, we'll call it matter density. And, and Einstein said, well, you can convert energy or matter to energy. That's important. But he didn't explain how you convert energy back into matter, in my way of thinking. And many years ago, I was at a conference, a bunch of scientists, and I said, tell me how much energy it takes to create 8 pounds of matter in the form of a human being. And it's some astronomical amount of energy required to do that, to create matter that way. That's a human being. Okay. And then we go by what process or what program or what software, a lot of language, does that come into existence? And so now you've gone out of 1 to 36 on Planck scale. So basically, what I did, I had to invent another scale and go from 36 to, I call it a reciprocal scale, 36 to 72. Now, what's that mean? Well, your thoughts can change, let's say reality. Well, that's about 66 on that scale. And I've been delineating out what each of these things like plasma and different energies, different forces in the universe, gravity, all these different things, they have a different vibration frequency. They have a different status on that reciprocal scale. Now, what's all that mean? You deal with physical reality. And as soon as you are into the area of your thoughts, your dreams, your emotions, your connections, all that is in what I earlier termed on Gaia as zero reality. So your physical existence is only what I call number one reality because you can interact with it. And most people think that's normal. And any interactions beyond that, once you go into that which does not have any physicality to it, becomes zero reality. And that's 99% of the universe. So interdimensionality becomes an interactive process that occurs across the other 99%. And we know that through studies in quantum physics about quantum entanglement. Um, we call it marriage in this world. So that's another joke. Uh, and if we wanted to be more specific, we could say a mother-child bond. The mother-child bond has an interdimensional, a quantum entanglement, a psychic connection. You see how all this language has been developed and thrown around for literally decades when I started studying it. And finally, we're ending up with a language like, say, my 0 and 1 reality allows us to examine that. Dream states and being non human consciousness or meaning we're somewhere else. And that's what it is. It becomes something that we're fascinated by, but nobody's ever really studied it and presented it in what we would call a logical manner or a rational manner. And that's what I've been doing, trying to do, is get people to understand this. So back to the earlier quote, you can talk to people, humans. Well, can you talk to plants? Can you talk to insects? Can you talk to animals? that's kind of like basic education in early Native American culture. So,
That's fascinating. Okay, that's a given
yeah.
in Native American culture. It's a given. So then there's a question, how do you learn to talk to, well, actually listen? That's the key. How do you listen? Because then you have to trust. Certainly. Do we have to move into our heart first to be able to listen?
Well, we use the heart meaning center of the body, but it's actually center of your consciousness. So,
The heart is the
listening,
center of your
listening,
consciousness.
yeah, listening requires basically at its highest form to shut down all other senses. Okay. So you find, I mean, I give an exercise when I teach martial arts about um, can you hear a pin drop? Yeah. Sit in a blank room, wood floors, take a pen, literally a straight pen, but if you're not very good, an ink pen, and toss it over your shoulder. And it has to be totally black inside. So you're not able to rely on your visual, it's only auditory. And people go, okay. And I go, now go pick up the pen. So, so that is how you would or you would elevate yourself to be able to understand auditory information flows. So, so it's a very basic exercise, and we used to do it, blindfolded and this that. There's other techniques in Native America that like, and I did this. There's a place called the Kaibab Plateau in Arizona, and it was called the Happy Hunting Ground. You ever heard those terms? And I strapped myself to one of those big old ponderosa pines up there, and that's an old technique. To become a medicine man, they would do things like that. And also, you had to die and come back if you were going to be a medicine man. And I've died several times and come back, so I'm still here. So I might lay claim to that title. Okay, there's a lot of information in that, but anyway, at the end of a couple of hours, you're in rhythm with that tree. That tree is moving. That tree is doing all kinds of things. And we say, well, you can feel or have some sense of, like, say, the sap flowing through the tree, the liquid. Well, you can do the same thing in some of the meditations. This is like deep martial arts to be able to interact with your own blood flow and heart rate and center of your consciousness, your heart, your brain, your mind. Those are all different specific areas of processing what goes on. So most people only learn to talk, most people only learn to hear. Konstantin Korotkov, back in the 90s, we went to a bunch of conferences. He's a scientist out of Russia. And of course, they banned him from coming to the United States because he was teaching people that you could hear through your skin, or you could see through your skin, or you could see literally like a virtual reality of the world without necessarily needing eyeballs or eardrums. So now we term that esoteric. In other words, it's some sort of magic woo-woo stuff, right? And it's not. It's just something that nobody takes the time to learn. And therein is the problem. All these things we're talking about, you have to sit yourself down with a plant and try to listen to it. And most people can't do that in one session, we'll call it. But over a period of time, you can learn it. And then we say, well, does it work? And if you want to interrupt me, please do. I get wound up. um, I had a backyard that there were squirrels in it, and there was one squirrel, and I learned to mimic its sounds. And so I heard it making noise, and I'd make the same noise. And it got to where it would come up to me, literally like arm's length. It would come up to the fence or tree by me and go to chattering. And I'd chatter back, trying to mimic as much as I could. And then one day I felt like somebody was looking at me, and I turned around and the squirrel had a baby with it that it had brought to see me because I was talking away. So mimicry becomes a form of communication. How do we know? Children. So if you were going to learn to speak to plants, you would learn to mimic their language. Nobody ever teaches any of this stuff anymore. Okay. And it works for plants and animals, kids, insects. So Native American tradition holds that all of them hold spirit, zero reality, non-physical. And you can talk to my grandmother was what I call a cloud shaman. She could look at clouds and tell you all kinds of things. And I'd look at them and go, I don't get it. So cloud's a plasma being, by the way. So it has consciousness. So we say, remember that Planck scale? All things that exist have consciousness. That's my contribution to science. How's that? And then we go, all things that are non physical have consciousness. So even a thought, which we later refer to as a thought form, can have consciousness. And so I like all these people go, oh, you can change the universe by your thoughts. And I go, well, if you had enough energy and enough coherence and enough, I can make you a list. And so most people don't do that. And that came back to how I first got started in what does it mean to be Lauren or any person, and how much energy you have, and what percentage are you really you. And I'm able to interrogate your information field or anybody's um, by virtue of a process called discernment, okay, otherwise known as applied kinesiology. So over the last 40 years, all these tools come into place that give us an opportunity that has been lacking, and that is the ability to interact across the boards. You can interact in dream states, you can interact with everything that exists, basically. And I think autistic children are that way. So now, the reason I think that is because a normal human has about 30 inputs that we can handle at any given time: temperature, pressure, gravity, noise, sight, all these different things. And my work with autistic children is some of them have 5,000 inputs. So when you speak to them, you're just one more noise. And when you shut that down, all of a sudden they can interact with people in this reality. Well, that's interesting because if there's 5,000, I wonder what those are. And then we go look at a plant and wonder what those are, or an animal, or a child, and a lot of other things I call bad jokes. so, so, so does this kind of give you a background in how we're actually being human, but not very much? I'll put it that way.
Yes.
Because we don't um, integrate what it means to be non-human, what it means to be that other 12 hours of the day that we're obviously somewhere and somehow someplace else.
It's mind blowing. And so connecting into that and being able to put our energy into it to create a timeline, I would say, creating a timeline, it really helps us to see how our choices are everything, our thoughts are everything. So our thoughts are conscious, and most of the time, the human would believe in doubt, would believe in their worry more than they believe in what they want to create, more than they believe in their dreams. And isn't that fascinating? Would you say that that is our societal programming that puts that in us?
Yes, it's I call it reach. How much reach do you have?
Okay.
Can you reach beyond yourself? Okay. So when we interact with another person, nobody ever comes up and goes, my degree of processing of the information that of you, I'm using computer language, uh, my refresh rate, my input and synaptic responses. There's computer language for all this I really love. I don't remember right now, but um, the end result is we just put a number on it, a 1 to 100, and say, well, I interact with you at 50%, and say my wife or child at 80%, parent. There's numbers, and this is all through calibration. And so it's the same thing about, we have programs, we have experiences, we have connections. Those are primary. And those lock you into a timeline. And I wanted to do a podcast. I haven't been able to do that because I can't even get my mic to work. But I was going to call it X timelines, because it's like, you got born and got locked onto an information highway, an experience highway, very similar to a neural pathway. So an X timeline is literally a neural pathway that you're going down. And if you deviate from that pathway, you experience pain. If you get married and it gets so bad, the pain's so bad, you get divorced, you get snapped back to your original timeline, and you go, oh God, I need to go this way now. So we look at deviations in it. It seems like the only way we get out of them is by pain. I'm not fond of that. We should be able to make a decision, and that decision is, this is not working for me, whether it be a person, a place, or a thing. So that's something people can look at. It's great language. No is great language, and this isn't working for me. It beats the heck out of trying to apologize or justify or explain your decision on why you got married or why you got divorced or why you took a job or why you eat certain foods, because you're only getting a very small packet of information from that person, and it's much more extensive. Okay, it's kind of like your entire consciousness comes down to, I'll have orange juice with breakfast. that and that would require a lot of getting into about how you came to that decision, right? So
Yeah. Wow.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about your grandmother and her awareness of clouds, because you said even clouds are beings. And isn't it amazing? We can sit and watch the clouds, and you can see it. I call it cloud therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually, and that just came to me because I was sitting one time watching the clouds, and they would change in front of me. I would see different things, and they would actually be reflecting back what I was thinking. Like I would see an image of something that I was thinking about. Isn't that fascinating? So,
Yeah.
how does my consciousness interact with the consciousness of a cloud?
Because it has a greater intensity than the cloud has coherence. How's that? In other words, you can override the cloud, or you can just accept the cloud. We do it with people.
Okay, so the thought of the human can override the cloud.
if if you're sufficiently integrated, synchronized, and congruent with your energy to be able to go into what we call projective consciousness. So, okay, projective consciousness. People, okay, what's projective consciousness? I walk down the street in Georgetown, and everybody I see, I have a negative opinion of. Okay. Oh man, what clothes? Who'd you dress you? Why you look that way? How come your hips out of place? All these things. Nobody looks at me. Okay. They walk around me. I turn around the corner, come back the other way. You're beautiful. Everybody in this program sees this. Should I have only one thought when they meet another person? You're beautiful. When I walked down the street, everybody I met smiled at me, waved at me, said hello, acknowledged me. That's projective consciousness. Now, that's with humans. We all do that. Okay. Now, what if I did that to a plant? Well, the secret life of plants, they knew if you projected negative thoughts at it, it would die. So, what if we have an animal? Well, you ever had a cat or dog respond to you? You've become interactive. Your projective consciousness has caused interaction to occur. The feedback loop is strictly telepathic or non physical. Now we communicate with animals. Everybody does it. So nobody explains all this about how you go about it. And there's exercises I teach for all this. So um, it's also something we come by naturally. So we really don't need to be taught. Um, I got yelled at about that.
There's something about that the educated mind, the societal mind of us being programmed by society would say, no, you can't listen to animals, you can't talk to animals.
Oh, yeah.
And yet so many people are like, my beloved animal has passed to the other side and I want to talk to him, so I'm going to go hire an animal communicator.
Yeah.
But we
No,
can do this ourselves.
I had a clinic for about 15 years where I worked on pregnancies and women that wanted to be pregnant or after pregnancy.
Wow.
I would engage in three-way conversations. Like recently, a lady said, well, I want to have a child. And I go, well, let me check. Well, there's two, and this gets really crazy. There's two entities out there that would love to be your child. One of them's a boy, one of them's a girl. What do you think? And she's like, well, I like the idea of having a girl. And I said, well, the availability isn't until like next February, let's say. I go, are you okay with that? She goes, yes. And I go, well, you'll probably get pregnant around February 7th, right? Now, I've been really good about that. I've actually had people, let's say, match the timeline. But the communication goes on with something that's non-physical. It's you are somebody before you're born. Okay. That is a non-physical thing. I'll promise you. Okay. And as it comes into existence, it takes on matter. Well, we're back to that equation about how much energy does it take. And it's phenomenal. And I mean, it gets into that's a 10-hour conversation about what all goes on. But so we look at all that and say, well, yeah, I can communicate with people that are passed on. I've done that. I do it all the time. I call them three-way conversations. And they get pretty interesting. I don't know if we have time. I give examples. I had a
Please.
man come to me and he brought three children with him. He's in his 30s. And I go, what can I help you with? Because I never know. I just say, present your problem. We'll take a look at it. And he said, well, my wife passed away. And I go, how old was she? And she said, 33. And I said, so what's the problem? You know, and I'm thinking depression, anxiety, something like that. And he said, well, can you talk to her? And I go, yeah. And he goes, well, how do you prove that? And I go, I'm not interested in proving things. Okay. I don't like tests. Actually, I love them. But anyway, I tell people I don't like them. So I said, tell me your name. And I went searching around. And it's called continuity of existence. Forget continuity of government. It's continuity of existence, before and after. And so I'm asking her, and he's asking me questions and stuff. And he goes, well, did she like the dress she was buried in? I mean, you talk about weird conversations, right? And I go, yeah, what is a yellow dress? And it was one of her favorites. And this guy looked at me and he's like, how do you know that? And I go, well, I'm talking to her. I'm not talking to
Wow.
you. And so it went downhill from there because I'm in a three-way conversation and she's talking, he's talking. I'm like, everybody just hold still one at a time, right? And so the whole concept would go back to like the turn of the century, there were seances. I don't know if all of them were fraudulent, but there were some people that were going, okay, let me have this conversation. Now, they were very happy when they left. I told them I would take care of making sure that she was okay and on her way. And they were good because they had found some validation and closing, right? But one of the aspects of this, if we extend it, is people like Tesla and even to a certain degree Einstein. But Tesla woke up in the middle of the night and one night drew out the Niagara Falls dynamos for electricity. Now, he did not invent that. He went to where that information was and downloaded it into this reality. We do that all the time non-consciously. So the difference becomes whether we consciously communicate with plants, animals, and things, whether we consciously communicate with like dream states and other realities or other dimensions. And now you have the whole picture, right? And what does it take? Somebody to practice and do some exercises or whatever. Some people are naturals, okay? And we call them intuitives and all this other language, but anybody can learn it to some degree. Some people are better at plants, some better at animals, some better with humans. So,
What validation that you were able to speak to the woman and know the color of her dress. And so I can hear our audience members saying, I want to do that. I want to do that. I want to do that.
yeah.
And we can do this through our energy body. So let's talk energy body or right, all the besides the physical, it's more to what we are than just the physical body. How would we begin? Because everyone wants to do that. And it could be a 10-hour conversation, but what do you think are the important elements then to do that? To
Well,
really cultivate that?
we recognize first. And what that means is like, do you know French? And the answer is no. But it doesn't mean I can't learn it. Okay. It can't mean I can't go explore whatever that word is and means and its connections. And of course, we open the book up and it becomes a country and food and places and people and history and all kinds of things. Like you can bury yourself for 30 years studying French history or culture. Nobody studies humans that way. I was thinking today, like people go, well, what do you teach? And I go, well, I relate what I've learned from humans, and I call it humanology. So, so what I teach is humanology because I've worked on so many people that I actually have about a 1% understanding of what they are, which puts me pretty much at the top of the class, is what I call it. So if we look at humans and say, well, you're physical, that's all most people can handle. Because those other 9 categories I came up with are all non-physical categories. What are your thoughts? What are your emotions? What are your relationships? And there's no physicality to any of those, not in the sense of their existence, but there is physicality in the sense of the outcome of the interactions. What's that mean? You ever get scared in a dream? Up goes the adrenaline, cortisol jumps, brainwave activity goes crazy. I mean, it's just phenomenal how this body responds to everything and how dumbed down it is for most people. So when you say I'd like to do that, you're talking about becoming more sensitive and and more interactive. And most people don't do that. They spend a life trying to avoid that. And I had one client, a young one, came to me one day, and she goes, "I want to learn what you know." And back then I could say things like, well, you could shoot yourself in the head and be less painful. We can't say that now because you can take on the pain of a plant or an animal and certainly another person and certainly a relation. And that's that information density like I have information density of my mom or my dad or my brother or my sister, my wife, my children, my dog, my cat. Those are different information densities. And that's another key aspect of what you're dealing with when you deal with dream states or plasma clouds. The information density changes. This gets really wild because this is a summation of what I'm trying to put together as something that will allow people to do some of the things I do. So,
Wow, good work. You are really fascinating, and all of the interviews that you've done is are really intriguing and really, really wonderful and mind expanding. So, as we are humans, is it safe to say that we can be supernatural? We can be superhuman. We can. We have to get out of our own way in doing that. What are the requirements necessary? So when we say our awakening journey, and here at New Earth One Network, we'll say it's really important to be in the heart. It's important to clear out the trauma, the belief systems, limiting belief systems. It's really important to listen. It's really important to go use the mind with the heart, connect with the higher self. Then we go quantum, which allows us access to information that we're talking about here. But then there's also this galactic knowledge, this galactic consciousness, and cosmic consciousness. As we become superhumans, what do you make about that? Or what is your definition or timeline of that journey that we take in doing this?
well, I think you start out that way. You're certainly that way before you're born. Okay.
So hell is earth is
Because
hell. Earth
because
is
you're
hell.
because you're non-physical. So everything becomes zero reality or whatever you want to call that. Um, People say, well, how do you get started? We always teach positive and negative, and nobody teaches neutral. Neutral is like the edge of a coin. It's an interface. Okay. It gets into some really weird physics, but if you have a coin, you have the right side and the left side. Well, we use that language in politics. We have a face and a reverse. We use that. But that interface really represents where our consciousness is and the degree that we're conscious. And neutral is the only way that you can explore this. From my understanding, I don't, when you sit with a plant or anything or a person, if you can sit there and be neutral, you can actually listen. So if you can't do neutral, and here's the key to that, if you can't learn to discern the truth from that neutrality, then you're not going to progress very far. And what that means is most humans are better off with a belief system or some sort of filters or some sort of boundaries that keep them from straying off into the occult, which means hidden, or and what I call just zero reality, all this stuff that nobody wants to talk about. Um, so anyway, those are the two ways we would get going with that. Is that you would learn to practice being neutral. Remember, I'm walking down the street and I have a negative thought about people and let people react to it. And I have a positive thought and people react to it. And if I have no thought, people bump into you
You're
because you
becoming
don't
invisible.
exist, right? And in a neutral position, you really have no consciousness, but you have awareness. And so I teach this as a martial art, 10 Sons martial arts. It's only take when I take a student, that's what I teach them. Awareness is the first martial art. I'm a positive, negative, or neutral. Remember the pin drop? That's an awareness exercise. Did you ever have brothers or sisters and you see how close you could get your finger to their skin before they screamed? You know, it's like it's amazing because you can do it from, I teach it. You start with just a half inch, that's your etheric field, another non physical thing before it's underneath astral or plasma. But anyway, your etheric field, you're interactive with a person's etheric field. The problem has come in our society, most people's etheric field's down around 2 or 3 inches. And if you're really alive and vibrant like a baby, you have a 14-inch or 20-inch etheric field, that first aura. So I can measure all that. Why? Because I can be neutral and I can interrogate your information field or anybody else on the planet just by their name because it's a skill set I've developed and it comes out of the first martial art, awareness. And just so people know where it goes, balance is the second martial art. Remember, positive, negative, neutral, right? And the third one's moment. We call that meditation. You go from moment to moment, and that becomes another 10-hour conversation. And then we'd go to movement. What makes you get up and do something or move your arm or hand or make your voice talk, right? And we'll stop there a second because when you think about speaking, who the heck is speaking? There's an origination of a thought that takes time to transfer into the voice box. There's an origination of that thought that exists somewhere before it becomes your thought, before it comes into your voice box, before it becomes words. This is all time. And if you look at that, I don't know who the heck's talking, just like I don't know who the heck I am, let's say, when I'm that 12 hours of non-conscious existence. So moment, movement, and then momentum. Now we're on our way. And that's that timeline you're in. There's 5 more, but I don't usually teach those real openly.
Wow. All right. Really fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to take you a while if you work through those, uh,
Yeah.
but it's phenomenal. The people I've taught this, they're some of the happiest people you'll ever meet because they're happy being themselves and they're confident in their own ability to extend to and into other people, places, and things. So, and in our society, we admire that.
Wow. With what's going on in the world right now as things are shifting and old systems are dying so fast, this seems to be the most important thing that we could be doing for
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
ourselves, for ourselves.
I think so. I mean, you would not believe the ease and comfort that comes from being around people that are being themselves. It is a funny, joyful thing. That's all I can explain. And a lot of bad jokes. so, so,
Good jokes. Humor is key. Humor is really important. Um, just your conversation with us is an activation. I want to let you know that as we ponder this, it's an activation. We're feeling elevated and uplifted. And that's really, really key because it's really empowering. So when you ask who's really talking, if one really is neutral and balanced and in the moment, then where does the higher self fit in? What are your thoughts on the higher self that allows the higher self to come in or embody or
uh,
what?
I use a different language. I use the language that allows you to go there.
Okay.
Like on a timeline or, the way you've been programmed or life experiences, connections, things like that. It doesn't allow for outliers. It's, I like a certain food. It doesn't allow for liking that food or speaking this language or, I have constructs about what I think is beautiful. And so all that goes away. You just become neutral. Everybody and everything's beautiful at that point. It's how do you get there? Well, it's hard because you want to differentiate things. And so we say the same thing. I want to differentiate my consciousness from other people, from other things, from the universe. And then, of course, we go, well, Before you were born, you were undifferentiated. And remember that dying thing? I've done that several times. And and when you die, I can testify that you're undifferentiated. That's the proper language. So,
Okay, I want to ask you about so are they, would you call it a near-death experience
mhm.
or a death experience? Because,
Yeah, death experience, right?
that's intriguing. What did you see? I guess you're living it, you're bringing
Yeah.
it forward here now.
Remember what I said about being blindfolded and in the dark?
Yes.
What do you see when you're blindfolded or in the dark? And there's a whole set of exercises give for this. They're in the dark. You end up stubbing your toe a lot and spilling things, but what you're doing is projecting your awareness to include your environment. Okay. Now, once we go into the non-physical or non-being alive, I guess, you actually have tremendous expansion. It's not enlightenment, it's not ascension, it's not all these things that everybody wants to teach out there. You have expansion of your consciousness to be inclusive as opposed to exclusive. Before you're born, you're inclusive. After you're born, you're exclusive. Okay. It's kind of like when you come in this lifetime. I saw a video on the internet I really love. Two guys go into a restaurant, and we'll call it an elderly waitress comes over, and she says, "What don't you want?" Okay, and the guys are like, "Well," she goes, "Look, we only serve one thing: steaks. Okay, medium rare. That's it." And she goes, "I want to know what you don't want." And they're like, "We don't." She goes, "Look, it's either the peas or corn. Which one don't you want?" Okay. And I think that's a best metaphor. I laugh because that's how we are when we're born. We're not born by what we want, we're born what we don't want. The negative becomes the driver in our life. And somehow, when you become that neutral interface, then you're open to the positive and the negative, okay, that is shut off from you. Your whole life, you go around saying, I want things. And the better answer and the better level of programming occurs with what I don't want. I don't want to be poor. I say I want to be rich. How much consciousness involved in that? How much energy? How much thought? How much connection to the universe? And then we go, what I don't want. Boy, that's a strong statement. Okay. So all this requires you to explore it. It's I mean, I interact with people and teach it, but everybody can explore it on their own. It's just that you have to sit down and do it. And that means no TV as a rule. Right? And and it may mean sitting somewhere that you're pretty well isolated, meaning not interactive with anything. And I started with people with just a sit down meditation at night. And the meditation is not to think. So if you can create that blank space, like all yoga, I teach yoga for 40 something years. It's like the whole purpose of yoga and meditation is get to the end of the class or get to the end of meditation. If you can successfully make it to the end, then for 2 or 3 minutes, you actually are kind of like a whole person. I call it a whole person under heaven. That's my language. It's Chinese language. And you expand out to include the entire universe at that point. Now, when you come back, you have generally a knowingness of what you need to do, which may be just go to sleep, but it also may be like Tesla, and you can design a gravity engine or whatever the heck needs to be brought into space right now, into reality. So you don't really create reality. You bring things into reality. There's a grammatical difference and a whole thought process. Um, I thank you for the opportunity to talk about this because, like I said, these are hours long conversations. And I
Yeah.
hate giving 5 minutes up because people go, wait a minute, back up. Let me.
We want more. We want more. It's deep. It goes deep.
Yeah.
Oh,
Actually, life gets easier. And the outcome I can tell you is you end up being a joyful person or should. And that word should means if you don't, I'll have to beat you if you're one of my students. because because you're not allowed to be negative or to be down or to not have energy. How are you going to be helpful and interact this world if you're all depressed and anxious and guilt and shame and all these other programs? It's
yeah.
like is once you kind of abandon them, it's remember it doesn't work for me anymore. Now you can start being alive. It's a tremendous rush. Okay, so
Could you take us through? I know it could take, it may just take a few moments,
mhm.
but could you take us through a process or something that we could use to come into that neutrality, to come into that space, into a that we can work with more in our meditation areas? This
I give
neutrality. I mean,
yeah, I
just
give
listening
very
to it
simple.
here, it feels like we're neutral.
Yeah.
But what's your protocol?
Huh. It's been so long since I've developed them. I give simple ones to begin with. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Easy. One of the easy ones is just see where you're at is say, I love you. All right.
So you're,
Now, a very simple statement. I can say, I love you. Now, what's that mean? It means I am in a state of being loving towards you. That's our literally just a state of being loving. And Dr. David Hawkins puts that at 500 on a scale of conscious, and that gives us a reference set. And that gets into another 10-hour conversation. So if we look at that and I say, I love you, you have the opportunity to say, I love you too, or don't bother. Okay. And don't bother comes in the form of, yes, you do. So if somebody says, I love you, you can say, thank you, or you can say, don't bother. You see what I mean? Do you understand that? It's like,
that would be kind of
reject.
rude to say don't bother.
Well,
That would be would that
well,
would
the
he,
language comes out, the better language is if somebody says they love you, you say, yes, you do.
okay, all right, let's all try that.
Now, watch.
Thanks.
Somebody says they don't love you. What do you say? Yes, you don't. It has nothing to do with you. It's a state of consciousness. So, this is an example of how we go beyond all this freaking programming we have. Okay. Remember that neutral thing? If I'm neutral and you say you love me, I have the chance to say what I want. Thank you. And then if somebody says they don't love you, I have the chance to say, what don't you want? I don't want anybody not loving me. You see how it all kind of goes around. So this is a
Um,
very interesting exercise because I learned it from 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds. so, um, so if they say they love you, yes, they do. If they say they don't love you, yes, they don't. It has nothing to do with you. You're just the object in the sentence or the equation. We could break it down etymologically or whatever. So that's a beginning exercise is not to have a reaction, not to go all emotional, not to be happier. You're already happy. Remember, I'm in a
wow.
loving state. So the second thing is that once you've got that, what you're doing is establishing that interface, that in between, the edge of the coin between positive and negative. It's a tremendous thing because you have the opportunity to smile on both sides, right? It makes me smile, you love me. It makes me smile, you don't love me. I think that's hilarious. I'm very lovable. so, that's a joke. Um, so, does this help explain? And then once you can establish a neutral interface, now I can sit down with myself. And this is kind of like my primary finding or whatever of discovery. And that is that if you can't find out who or what you are and how you are, then you get to be one of those people that goes around trying to find out what they don't like as opposed to what they like. That's an easy way to look at it. So when you sit down and meditate, I'll give you the easy one. All my exercises are progressive. All of them become harder. All of them become more painful. And the reason is because the ego and the construct of consciousness itself. So you sit down at night, back to the wall, and you put the sacral area, lower back, and the middle of the back, and the back of the head against the wall. Close your eyes, hands anywhere, legs anywhere. And you do this at night. You take a deep breath and go, I got up this morning, I went here, I got dressed, I had food, I had breakfast, blah, blah, blah. And you'll run out of breath. And take another deep breath. And I went and saw these people and I did all these things and blah, blah, blah. And you just keep going. Eventually you'll go. And now I'm sitting in my bedroom and I made it through the day. I've completed the day. Remember that being here and being there thing. Once you've completed being the day, you go, I love you, Lauren, I love you. It's a reciprocal meditation. That's another key aspect of some of this. So once I've said that, I say that out loud. I love you, Lauren, I love you. I love you, Randy, I love you. And now I can go to sleep. I have put a boundary, I've put a limit, I've closed out a file. Remember, open a file when I open up in the morning, computer language, and I cram all this stuff into it. And then at night, I try to process it. You will sleep beautifully. You will recharge, regenerate, and rejuvenate the body in that state. And if you're not in that state, you'll degenerate, all the other stuff. So people go, oh, you can do all these things for aging. Well, how about do all these things to not age? And none of them are take this pill or anything like that. I mean, I'm almost 99 years old. I mean, I'm 75. Think about it. So, so
Wow. Okay, so beautiful. These
yeah.
are really important self-nurturing
Hmm.
tools.
Yeah.
Self-nurturing. It feels so wonderful. I think everyone in our audience is going to do this tonight, is that meditation. And you
It
know, what's fascinating is the Ho'oponopono, those four phrases, Ho'oponopono, the four phrases,
yeah.
thank you, I love you,
Yes.
forgive me, I'm sorry. Why do you think that works so well? Because that literally, I've done this to people, neighbors, situations, strangers. When things get a little heated, I weave those phrases into the conversation.
Yes.
And it's amazing what happens. Even if it doesn't seem like it's happening in the moment, a few days may go by, but it definitely does something. Can you explain what is happening?
Yeah. You're establishing a new neural pathway, a
Okay.
non-judgmental pathway, a pathway that, yeah, thankfully, like in Hawkins and some others, work I'm doing, actually it gives us a chance to have mile markers, right? The intellect, 400, love, 500. I reset people because I can do that at 540, which in Hawkins scale is joyfulness. And to me, it's the highest level you can experience as a human being. And you can be higher than that. We talk about saints and all this. Here we go, ascension and everything else, elevation, enlightenment. Most of those people don't exist in society, and they're isolated from it. And if you're willing to do that, I know the exercises. I can what I call teach you to put yourself on the moon or beyond, and all that's available. It's just like, what the heck are you going to do with it when it comes time to eat or interact with other people? It becomes very difficult. I know because I did all the meditations I give people and all the exercises, and some of them were quite painful. Remember, they're all progressive. So a lot of people say, I want to be better. And I go, yeah, well, let's find out. Because the pain comes from getting rid of the neural pathways, the experiences, and the connections, the limitations, and the filters that you have placed on yourself or been placed on you by the outside world. And the elimination of all that equals expansion of consciousness. And that is the best language because it takes out all the gurus, it takes out all the avatars, everything else goes away. And that's why we say life can teach you to be enlightened, animals, plants, anything and any person. And that's why we be neutral with them or to the positive and be loving towards them. So that's what you're doing when you introduce the option of going down that new neural pathway of a loving person, a kind person. And in my language, it's just a person being 100% themselves. So most people aren't.
Most people aren't. I actually was driving down the road one day and I had a vision of the world where everyone was living authentically. They were being their authentic self. And it was pretty wild and funny
Yeah. Yeah.
and crazy, not crazy like bad, but it was wild.
Yeah.
I laughed.
Yeah. You can approach a state of being able to have Native American humor. I get accused of telling bad jokes, and I go, well, I was raised with Native Americans, and we know some great ones, right? And ways to poke fun at people. And then somebody said, well, yours are even worse. And I go, well, I did stay with Chinese teachers for about 30 years. So their sense of humor is phenomenal. Okay. Now, what's interesting is so is Russian humor. So is, if you get into the humor side of human existence, we are very creative and very spot on because high humor has the quality of intuition, of knowing where to go with the words or the conversation to provoke the greatest response. Okay. If I say you're beautiful, you go, yeah, I've been told that a million times. Oh, you're smart, right? And then we go, well, why is your mama dress you so funny? And it's like, what did you say? Right? See, I deviated from that normal path line of conversation. Okay. If I tell somebody I walk up in a crowd and say I love you to some person I've never met, that is either going to go well or not. So, right. And then are you neutral enough to let it go either way? Okay. You become what I call fascinated with existence. That's a great term. And if you're born, you should be fascinated with being human and being alive. That's what I try to work with people.
That's worthy of a sticky note for people to put down. If you're born, you are worthy of being fascinated. Is that
Yeah,
what you said?
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. A child is, and we go, "What the hell happened to you?"
And
So,
Earth beat us up. Earth
yeah,
beat us up. Earth stole our dreams. That's why it would almost seem like I guess we could call it the earthly matrix, this
yeah,
paradigm. It could be seen as hell. Earth could be seen as when I was a child, I was like, Earth is hell. Earth is hell. But when we say bringing heaven to earth, that really means doing this work that you're teaching and talking about.
yeah,
Because that's when we're talking about birthright, that's our birthright. That's who we are,
yeah,
right?
yeah. We lose it. We say in my work, I find most people are themselves to about 5 or 6 years old. What
Yeah.
that means is they're 100. I use metrics. They're 100% themselves. Excuse me, and 100% available to life, and everything goes on. It means they have a certain amount of energetic inputs. I call it acupuncture. All right, there's points on the body of interaction. What's interesting, there's 1,080 of those, but there's also points of interaction with the consciousness, and nobody explains those. Okay,
Mm.
of course, we'd say a connection to mom or dad or school or some form of teaching or whatever. And then you're supposed to have a certain amount of voltage in the body. Well, you ever tried to keep up with a 2-year-old? You know what I'm talking about, right? So if you don't have that level of energy, why not? So that's the exercise I give to reestablish that level of energy in a person. There is no reason not to be what I call wound to the walls as far as energy. It drives people around me crazy because I don't get tired. It's like I go 100 miles an hour from the moment I get up to the moment I go to bed, and even then I'm still kind of moving. So
I know. I was going to say, do you even sleep or do you recharge your energy?
um, remember the purpose of the meditation, sitting meditation, is clear the subconscious mind. So
Mm.
if you clear the subconscious mind, that's one thing you don't have to do non-consciously and while you're asleep.
Uh,
Now, if you do sun salutations, only one at night or two, then you're going to free up the body of its tension. So now the body doesn't have to flop around. And so, to achieve status or rest. So now we look at that, and then the unconscious and subconscious, well, that's some other deeper meditations I teach. But anyway, you can get rid of all of it. Remember, I'm in my room, I'm going to sleep, I did good. That's that forgiveness thing. And and thank you. And the thank you takes the form of I love you, Lauren, I love you. So now what happens? You go to sleep. Now you get to go play in the other 9/10 of the universe. Um, my girlfriend makes fun of me because I work all night. She'll see me doing hand motions, and I use hand motions to be interactive with zero reality. And that gets into mudras. That's basic language. You can learn mudras. That's basically interacting with that which is non-physical. Here we go again. I've just, for 40 years, been able to expand that. And so I do a lot of work at night. A lot of things come to me. Einstein and Tesla and all of them kept a notebook by the bed. Same thing. Girlfriend wakes up. What are you doing? I'm writing. It's dark. And well, I learned to write in the dark. you know, and because things come to me, and I know I'll forget them if when I wake up. So that's where I've been exploring like these reciprocal frequencies, or uh, they're called forces of the universe. Remember 1 to 36 on Planck's scale? I invented my own 3672. And the basic question that I've been coming up with since I was young is, what is life force? And I've locked it down to a frequency or whatever. I've been able to increase it in myself and others. We already know lots of things decrease that, all right? We know if you have energy running up and down the spine, they call it a Tajian pole, you have a big energy field. What's a big energy field? Well, Taylor Swift has a big energy field. We have millions of people that want to see her. And if you have a 1 foot energy field, nobody wants to see you. They don't even see you, recognize you walking down the street, they bump into you. And so I teach people have a minimum of a 9 foot energy field. It's a simple exercise to do that. Basically, anybody can do it. So
what is that simple exercise for a 9 foot energy field?
lay on your back on a hard floor, put your feet together, put your hands over your head or by your hips, whichever palms, and you're going to use your feet and body and kick over and roll over till you're face down. It's called log rolls. And then you're going to inhale again and exhale, always on the exhale move. And you're going to roll, and depending on how much room you have, 2 or 3 one way, 2 or 3 the other way, and back and forth. And you will build a bigger energy field. And I give it, remember, progressive 1 minute, 3 minutes, 11 minutes. One of my favorite clients, she came to me. She was in her 70s then. six husbands. I think she'd been pregnant 10 or 11 times, just on and on and on. And basically, she was out of energy. I said, okay, do this exercise. 11 minutes, she build up to the key. And she came back a month later and goes, how you doing? And I'm like, what the heck? What have you been doing? I've been doing that exercise. I go, you got like a 30-foot energy field. She goes, I feel great. And I go, have you been dizzy? She goes, yes. I said, you didn't keep your eyes open, did you? So that's a requirement. And then when you stop, wait a minute, set up, wait a minute, and finally you can stand up. That's the exercise. Okay. But the phenomenal difference, 3 years later, she calls me every once in a while. And I go, why are you calling me? And she goes, just to tell you I'm doing great. All right. So she's in her 80s now. She still has about, let's see, where's she at today? She's got about a 16-foot energy field. That's something we'd see in a teenager. Okay. So think about that. We call it presence. Are you present as Lauren? To what degree are you present? Put a metric on it. How about an energy field? How about an etheric field? And now we know why some people are attractive. I love that. Oh, you can attract this or that and the other. And the answer is no, you don't have enough energy. You're not expansive enough to include that in your future. Like I say, this stuff wear you out.
Oh, I love it. And I'm certain that everyone watching and listening is going to want to go back and listen to this again and actually learn more from you. And I'm hearing a question. I'm hearing people in our audience, if they want to work with you, do you do personal sessions like this?
Yes, I
You,
do. They take about an hour for me to go through about 1,000 questions.
wow.
Basically interrogating your energy field or information set. That's what I call it. You can learn to do that. We do it naturally. Women are better at it than men. You know, a man says hello and the woman goes hello. A woman says hello and the other women go, what happened? When did you get divorced? What did your husband do? You see, there's that additional content that's already there. And so I just happen to be really good at picking it up. I tell people I was raised with five women, two sisters, a mother, an aunt, and a grandmother. And I learned to pick up that language, learn to listen to it. So, but if you do the meditation, if you do the log rolling, remember they're progressive, then I throw in like power versus force or letting go. Now you have a bunch of tools to work with. Okay. I work with the people, I tell people you can reset yourself. Most people can't and don't. I have learned to do that. I can reset a person to be 100% themselves, 100% available, full energetic inputs, full voltage, 9, 12, 15-foot energy field. It is a phenomenal difference that about 98% of people are able to understand, realize, and experience. Some people, I've had a couple that nothing worked, right? And that's a hour-long session and then a follow-up about a week later just to see how you're holding on, see if you're maintaining. And I give little exercises like I've given you, and they help. And then we're looking for things we missed and things that come to me as being beneficial to you. And so that's the idea of having a partner is that they would in some way provide something beneficial to the relationship. Most people probably don't like that language, but if there's anything to be desired, that would be it. Not being loving, not being this, not being that kind, all these things, but in some way being beneficial to my existence as a human being. So, right. Beyond that, I do take students very rarely because the amount of time it takes and it's very expensive. I basically don't want students because I used to try to teach people and they weren't willing to do the effort. put out the effort, because what you're asking for is not only my time, you're asking for basically 5 hours a day of your own time. And
Mm.
so the ones that have done that are phenomenal in their existence and in their presence and in their activities in this world. And I can point to dozens of them. So,
Well, beautiful. Thank you for bringing this information to our reality, to our planet, showing the way on this. And so, as you were sharing, even about the mudras, that really does explain many of the practitioners here at New Earth One Network, when they use mudras, that it is real, it is energy, it's interacting with the non-physical. And so, my last question, and this is off the mark, but I am curious about toning. Some people even sing light language or speak light language or write light language. But in my experience, I've had some remarkable, I want to say, miracles with animals, interfacing with animals. For example, a bird would hit a window and look like it was dead, and I would tone to it. I've done this a number of times, and just toning and being very present. And the bird, one came back to life. I thought it was dead. Maybe it was just passed out. Is that my mind making it up? What would you say when we're called internally to tone or make a sound to an animal, and then to see that animal fly away or get up and walk away? Is that craziness? What's your input?
if it was available to them to come back to life or to revive themselves, be revived, then whatever you did worked. And if it wasn't available, no matter what you did, doesn't work.
Right.
Remember the two or three people out of 100 I work on that don't respond. No matter what I do, it's not going to work. It's not available to them, the space or themselves, to the point that they can reaffirm their own existence.
Mm.
So when I do the meditation at night, I'm reaffirming my own existence. Uh, we don't want to use false positives. I got in a big conversation with Louise Hay about that one day. So, so by getting rid of all the negatives during the day, we ultimately come back to I'm Lauren. And that is the greatest thing in the universe you can ever say, is that I am myself, right?
Okay, beautiful. Wow, what a rich conversation. Thank you so much, Randy.
Thank
We
you.
are really grateful for this time together today. So, final thoughts as we say goodbye.
Hmm?
Final thoughts. Final thoughts.
Oh, I want to thank you for, I've been wanting to have this conversation. I've been on other podcasts where I didn't feel like it was appropriate to go into it this deep. So I appreciate your guidance on it and stuff. I just, it's kind of like want everybody to straighten up. So it's, and that's not really true.
Turn
I
off the
just wish that
news.
people were being themselves and being healthy and being happy. That's the basis I work on. And anything I can do to help you be that way, I'm all for. The crazy part is I've done this for corporations. It is phenomenal, the difference in how they operate. I've made the same offer to like sports teams and billionaires, and they're not interested because what they're doing seems to work for them. And
Yeah.
so that complacency is something that doesn't occur to me because I'm still exploring. And we can get into all that sometime. All right. Like how you
Yes.
go through life. So,
It's almost as if when your back is against the wall or when you're up against a wall, that's really when you make a choice to choose, right? You
yeah.
choose what you want to do, and to let it all go. And so With the world as it is, there's so much that can distract us from this centeredness.
Yeah.
Turn off the news. How would you approach the neutrality with the news, with politics, with um, chaos?
I will tell you. Back to that exercise of wall. If you get tired, if your head comes off the wall, quit.
Okay.
If you're doing any exercise and you get tired, quit. This is the way we teach in Kung Fu because now you're training on an exhausted form or function. Now, to your question, how do you deal with the way the world is? It's real simple. It's called quantum physics, it's called quantum collapse. And David Hawkins expressed it succinctly as the following: the world is perfect. Okay. Now, Wang Po was fourth century Chinese philosopher. He said it this way: reality is reality. What you think about reality and how you feel about reality is not reality. Remember the 0 and 1, right? Or 1 and 0. Number one, reality is the only one we have. What you think about it and how you feel about it is not reality. Quantum
Ah,
physics says we go to ultimate collapse every moment to moment to moment. If the world was meant to be different, it would be different. And no amount of this, that, or the other is going to change that in particular unless you assume a very expanded consciousness and energy field to be able to influence those events. And most people don't have a practice that would allow them to do that. Some people do. Okay. So when you look at the world and everything going on, the world's perfect. What's the problem? I'm neutral about it. Okay. And then people go, well, you can't be neutral. You have to hate it. You have to be upset. You have to choose sides. Why? Why? It's like there is no reason to hate anybody or anything. You can choose to be somewhere else. I wouldn't choose to be in California. And so now the best thing you can learn as a martial arts, what I call the ultimate martial arts, what I teach. Don't be there. It doesn't require hours of practice. It doesn't require a training regimen. Just if there's going to be a firestorm or a tornado, and I live in Oklahoma and tornadoes, then I learned don't be there when the tornado comes. Be somewhere else. And so if there's going to be a car wreck, a train wreck, if there's going to be a bad end to a relationship, don't be there. And there's exercise I can give you for that. But so if you learn anything today is don't be there. Find out what you don't want. Explore that. Learn to be loving. Period. You know, and just those two exercises do a lot. The full routine is, of course, 10 exercises. So remember 10 suns. So each becomes
wow.
a sun source of your own consciousness and energy. And for all the people out there that try to teach all this, most of them miss some portion of it. And that's my opinion. So
Wow. What a refreshing, energizing conversation.
thank you.
Thank you so much. I know you have shifted all of us. We are grateful. Randy, thank you so much. Again, life changing,
Yeah.
life changing. I mean, I feel elated, and I'm hoping that everyone watching and listening feels just as elated. The word empowered, whole is the word.
Yeah. A whole person under heaven. That's a language. It's a little Chinese symbol I use on the cover of my books and stuff. So, and it's to remind me a whole person under heaven, the Chinese symbol means a home, and underneath it's the family or all your connections, and that they're in harmony. So, I think that's a very beautiful way to put it. So,
So beautiful.
yeah.
Thank you, Randy Veitenheimer, for being here on this quantum conversation. Thank you.
Okay. And people, They can reach me on email. It's Energy Doctor with a K.
Okay.
My phone number is 202-904-9560. People don't put their number out. I put my number out. I had one client that called me and he said, I called him back and he's like, who's this? And I said, it's Randy, you called me. He goes, nobody ever calls you or answers the phone. And I go, well, I'm bored. No, no, I'm sorry. I'm always looking for interactions and learning to learn because I learn from other people. So why would I lock myself away? Um, so I tell people they can reach me email or they can give me a call. If
All
it's
right.
calls, I might be slow getting back to them. Same thing on emails, depending on the volume. Uh, People
Wow.
say, "How else can you contact me?" Facebook, what do you call it? YouTube. I have videos out.
Mm.
Instagram. I don't know how all that works. My favorite, I tell people contact me on Zelle.
Oh, yeah.
So,
We all want to be contacted on
yeah,
Zell.
that's the best way to contact me. I guarantee you, I'll call you back. So,
All
so
right. Well, you better watch for your phone to ring off the hook there after this
that's no
episode
problem.
because I know
Remember,
people are.
everybody does well expands out to everybody around them. So that's the great service I'm trying to provide, not just to one person, but to everybody that they know too, because we all benefit from Lauren being Lauren. We all benefit from Lauren being happy, healthy, wealthy. Always throw that in. Remember the Zell thing. So,
Beautiful.
yeah,
All right.
we can have fun with this. I promise you. So,
We're here to have fun. It's time to have fun. All
yeah,
right.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
Thank you so much, Randy.
You're welcome.
Namaste. Thank you for listening to this quantum conversation, and thank you for dancing with us to the cosmic heart. As we raise our own vibration, we raise the vibration of the planet. This show is dedicated to you and all awakening hearts as we are here to shine our bright light and amplify our love. I'm Loren Gailey, and from my sacred heart to yours, I honor your magnificent love and light. We leave you now with music from the universe. Music literally created by the universe as musical notes were assigned to mathematical equations. The result is this beautiful music available at acoustichealth.com. Namaste.